make sure I hit the record button for everybody and that our chat box is active. We do have a few participants today. I've invited Jack Garrison, Linda Myers, and Gina Rablau, who will be communicating in the chat box for us as we are finishing up the feedback portion of our series, and this is the second to last session that we will be engaging in. We have a lot of new updates to share with you today, as well as be reflective of the practices that we've engaged in prior to this session. Feel free to ask any additional questions. I know there's been a lot of sometimes confusion, sometimes, okay, am I doing this right with regard to the action plan, and I just want to make sure that you've shared your action plan with the partner that I've assigned you, and that you've had the opportunity to provide feedback to that person. I've shared all the documents with all the partners as of today so that you have that opportunity using the I wonder, I notice, and a what if protocol. A lot of people have stepped up to that, and that will record your attendance for the Feed Up Part 2 session. From there on out, really the action plan is intended to provide you with a working document, kind of an opportunity to put your thoughts down, to put your practice, language, feedback that you want to incorporate into your classroom. If there's anything that you want to share with Carol or I, please feel free to do so on those documents. It's not an oversight on our part to be able to say, you know, you're doing this right or you're doing this wrong, but please go ahead and ask us those questions if it's something that you are concerned about with regard to the feed up, feedback, and feed forward process. And so far, we've had a tremendous turnout for this professional development, as well as great insights that have come from the action plans, and that's why I've asked some individuals to share what they've been working on. Okay, I'm going to X off of myself here on the video portion and go ahead and share my screen with you so we can get started. Feel a little bit of background noise from a couple of people. So right here you see our introductory slide looking at the session objectives, which I shared with you earlier, really encouraging that collaborative opportunity so that we have the space to be able to talk with one another and share with one another and be able to have those mutual conversations. Again, the chat room has been really helpful for that. And we really want to engage in the exchange of dialogue regarding feedback approaches, and we'll hear from some people today. And we want to share with you some updates on feedback, some things happening in Blackboard, and then we want to introduce the conversation for Canvas, and then to be able to share action plans on effective feedback approaches. So just to kind of go backwards where we've been with the Feed Up, we were really emphasizing this idea of preparations for students and instructors, wanting the opportunity to be conversational and collaborative, to build that culture, that social constructivist opportunity for students, as well as we wanted to be proactive on your part, to be able to say you are in control and you can prepare some of the information for students to be successful. And then finally, we talked about the action plan. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me okay. Just kind of say, yes, I can hear you in the chat box. I think some people are saying I can't quite hear you. Thank you, John. So, and then in this session, we've talked about feedback, emphasis on the levels of feedback, the purposes of feedback, and how to construct language within the feedback approach. And we spent the first two sessions really diving into that, and that was high contact and content dissemination to be able to share with you in terms of, you know, how are we looking at the levels of feedback in terms of, is it feedback about the task, is it feedback about the process, feedback about the person, and then the types of feedback, using questions as feedback, using collaborative grouping spaces for feedback. So we did talk about those things. We wanted to encourage, again, that collaborative space for feedback, starting that exchange of dialogue with students, and then for you to have active practice and reflection, that kind of goes back to the action plan. So we're going to take a moment to hear from Jack Garrison. I've kind of laid out a little bit of information in what's in Jack's action plan. And so I'm going to stop sharing my document here so that he can share his screen and his information with you. Let me just kind of make sure I get the ball in the right spot here so that he can share what he has. And that's not the person I want to go to, so hang on a second.
But I steal your ball?
Has joined the meeting.
Steal my ball here in just a second. You can steal it. If you can want to go ahead and do that.
I think I did.
Andrea Vandenberg.
Okay.
Has joined the meeting.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Jack Garrison. I hope you can hear me. I have a hoarse voice today. Just a quick background. I've been with Baker College teaching for over 20 years, and I enjoy teaching in the computer science and project management role. I found this cohort activity very good, and let me share some information I have. First of all, in the chat session, I put a link to the MP4 movie or video we're about to see, so you can follow up on that after we're done talking. What I want to share, though, is what we've come up with in our action plan and some feedback I've received from my feedback partner and also feedback from the students. And then we'll take a quick look at the actual MP4 we've created. So part of the reflections is that I've moved one step ahead and actually created a tool that I'm going to use for every class in my area that is an introduction of what engagement is. It's a 2-3 minute video, and we'll look at it in a second. I also plan on doing some additional enhancements to my classes to take advantage of some of the things that we've learned over the last month. Looking at the Screen-O-Matic to develop MIDI series, and also look at the audio videos. Well, that was a great session we had last talking about how to increase engagement. Okay, so this is the action plan we put together. I've got step 1 done. If we take a look at the video, it's right here. And again, this link is in your chat line. Welcome. My name is Jack Harrison. I'll be sharing with you some information on engagement highlights. So if the audio is hard to hear, I apologize. Basically, what we're going to do is talk about what we're going to talk about. Definition of engagement, characteristics, how we measure it, strategy, and some conclusions. If the student does nothing more than get this one slide, we've accomplished what we want to accomplish. You remember the concept of participation. We're replacing participation with engagement. Some examples of engagement are submissions of homework, responses to my posts, responses to classmates' posts. Remember that time is fleeting and we need to do things on a consistent daily basis. Let's look at the definition of engagement. Because there's a high correlation between engagement and student learning, Baker College encourages students to engage daily in their classroom. Students can engage substantially by publishing their contributions on online classroom area, discussion boards, blogs, etc. And the engagement is expected to reflect professional, critical thinking, correct grammar. Characteristics of engagement are timely, draws upon a learner's personal experiences, involves the learner in construction of knowledge, and works to build a sense of community and purpose. So the purpose of this slide and the next one is basically to show that we're not just creating this and simply because the professor wants it. This has actually got some scientific background to it. Participation. It contains the classification of superior, needs work, tests and are complete. It covers the areas of timeliness and frequency, substance, and professional presentation, grammar, spelling, issues, references, etc. So how are we going to achieve this? We're going to use a Socratic method that involves communication between class, using probing, clarifying, substantive, rationalization. Now, the Socratic method is one method I use a lot.
Has joined the meeting.
And I find it to be very, very strategic and very helpful.
I'm in my meeting. That's okay.
Okay, So what we also do is we provide a student with an idea as to how we actually may know how frequently they participate. We've got tools within Blackboard that tells us that, right? Okay, so this is, so far we've looked at the action plan, we've looked at a rubric, we looked at the video. I also have...
Has joined the meeting.
The student feedback I've received has been better than what I thought. Let's see if I can find it real quick. That's not it. Long drive.
So Jack, I just have a couple of questions for you, if I could kind of stop you right there. I know that we're having some issues with audio. So I'm just going to ask orally that people kind of mute their audio. If there's one more thing that you'd like to share with us, that would be great. And then in thinking about, this question about, how do you feel that your Feed Up strategy has really supported your opportunity to provide quality feedback? That's the question I kind of want to throw out there for you.
Okay, so let me finish this one thought, and then maybe I can answer your question. So here's just the preliminary feedback we received from students, and actually this just recently, October 26th, where students read or went through the whole video, and they asked questions, answered questions, and created a dialogue. And what they wanted to know was, well, who created that rubric? So we have Michael Casino there, thanks for that one. But that's the feedback I'm receiving just for one class introduction. Okay, so again, your question is, how does the action plan that I have support the objective? Is that basically what the question is?
Yeah, how are you seeing the connection with the Feed Up strategy that you showed us in the video? How is that being supported by your opportunities to provide feedback that we've talked about in the last couple of sessions?
Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing is taking that rubric that you just saw in the Feed Up presentation, the Feed Up section. I'm using that rubric to go ahead and in the grade book actually provide them with how are they doing with engagement. I'm doing that in some cases reducing the number of points to get awarded for their weekly class discussion questions. They distinctly know where they sit or what their status is as a result of the grade book and feedback there.
Okay, so perfect. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'm going to take the ball back. Just kind of share with you, here was Jack's action plan. These are the things that he wanted to work on, as far as making sure that students were engaging and that he wanted more interaction results. He measured that with kind of the engagement he was allotting for them and kind of measured the students' engagement. So, hopefully it's working. And, he said maybe the time to create the videos. Jack, how long did it take to create that video?
In order to create all the material and record the video, probably about an hour.
Okay.
If I just had the material handy and scripted, it would have taken me 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an example of, how to be able to use the Feed Up strategy, and then thinking about how that's helping you with the the feedback opportunities that we've been working towards. So thanks for sharing that, and maybe that'll help some of you in moving forward with your Feed Up strategy. So our next faculty member that we've invited is Linda. And Linda, do you have the ball up with you? Or no, I'm going to be sharing today your action plan. And can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. So here is Linda's action plan, and we had talked, Christina is providing her with some really good feedback. I should say that Linda's done a fantastic job of providing feedback to multiple faculty, and the support has been really wonderful. And I hope that's been helpful for you too as well. You know, the question kind of lingering out there, Linda, is what was the feedback strategy that you tried, feed-up strategy that you tried, and really how did that help you with your the feedback that you're providing for students? Linda, are you still there? I'm not so sure that she can hear me, or I don't think she's in the chat room. That's kind of strange. Okay, can you share your thoughts with us? Are you going to use the chat room, or you can open up your audio? I hear some typing going on. All right.
I'm sorry, that's Jack. I'll go on mute.
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
No, that was Jack. I'll go on mute now.
Okay, thank you, Jack. And Linda, we still cannot hear you on your end. Is there something on the WebEx that you, technical difficulties. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Gina, and Gina's going to be using the chat box. And so what I found some really interesting things with Gina's action plan. And so just to kind of give you a brief explanation, you know, we had this long conversation in the chat box here. Shannon kind of chimed in. You know, she really wanted to be a role model and a model for students. You guys can see that right there for how to solve problems. And so she took a very instructional approach. She wanted to say, okay, I'm going to promote this idea of feedback by really being an instructional role model for students. And so what I wanted to share with you is some of the feedback reflections that she had. Her opening spread, she said her focus was focusing on this idea of self-regulation and self as a person, which is kind of that higher level feedback approach. And so you can see some of her evidence here. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. So, you know, she's got Lindsay here, and then Clindia. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so students are seeing this evidence from Gina and how she's really focusing. Lindsay, thank you, Lindsay, for providing a step-by-step solution. Your contribution in class is really seeming to result in everyone understanding. Okay, remember her focus was on self-regulation and self as a person. And so that she took what we were learning on that level of feedback and really focused that for Lindsay and Clindia. Here, you know, she kind of says, good work. Everyone, let's consider how she's adding some content here, as well as there's a dialogue exchange here, and I'm assuming this is happening in the discussion board. You can correct me, Gina, if that's inaccurate, but what I wanted to make known here is there is a strong dialogue going on here between faculty and student. And so what happens is this is exactly what we want. We want that feedback exchange to continue. And when some of you are saying within the discussion board that's how I provide feedback, this would be a perfect example of that. She says here, in my effort to promote collaboration among students and encourage their engagement, see below, everyone please go over the example. As I've mentioned before, please read other students' posts. So, you know, this is kind of creating that very collaborative environment for students to be able to solve problems. And so in a math class, this can be sometimes challenging because we do have that external resource with the Math Labs Plus. And so Gina has really taken this approach of making sure that things can be housed in the Blackboard arena to really support that collaborative environment. And so if there's any questions that you have for Gina regarding her approach, and so this is a really strong action plan document. It's given us student examples, and so these are things that she too can reflect upon and, you know, give herself a pat on the back and saying, You know, these are some areas that I'm providing feedback for students, but then also kind of bringing out this collaborative conversation. And remember, her focus was on self as a person and self-regulation, really wanting students to kind of take ownership of that.
Myers
and
has
so
left the meeting.
We had talked earlier about self-regulation, self as a person, that it sometimes takes time to build that relationship with students before you can actually provide that feedback. So don't be remiss if you're finding yourself waiting on that type of feedback for students, because it will come. You kind of just have to get to know them a little bit. Okay, I'm reading some of the feedback in the comment chat box. I wonder why some students still tell me that it's unusual to have a professor active in the discussion board. I don't know, Don. I'm still baffled by that too, and the fact that you know, that's really standard practice here at Baker. I know it's not everywhere in all institutions, but it truly is standard practice here. And my hope is that it continues to be. That's really what makes us the institution that we are, is that we really encourage that dialogue with students. Okay, Linda, is your audio back up and running?
I think it is. Can you hear me?
Yay, we can hear you. Okay.
Right.
All right, so here we go. Is this the right document that you want up?
Please.
Okay.
Okay. So I tried to come full circle with what I've learned in this PD, which has been very helpful, and I'm not quite there yet, but some of the things that I started with was week one right away was asking the students in discussion board, do you always follow the rubric when doing assignments? Where do you find the rubrics? How do you use the rubrics for assignments? And then I followed up with, why do you think I wanted you to tell me about the rubrics? So I was trying to create a dialogue and an understanding of, A, knowing that they knew where they were and how to read them, and B, for them to explain to me the purpose and importance of those rubrics. And I think that the students with the responses, some of them didn't know where to locate the rubrics, so that was very helpful. And then one of the responses was, I appreciate that you asked about locating the rubrics for these reasons. And then what I've also been trying to do is take a specific assignment, and I'll say, all right, let's talk about the rubric for this assignment. What are some keywords in the rubric? Explain what you think are the expectations, and then I get dialogue on that. So again, it's helping me, and I give feedback to them once they post. It's helping me to know that they do understand the assignment, or they have an aha moment of, oh, I didn't realize that this was part of it. And probably the one that I'm most excited about is this last week's one where I said, here are the student learning outcomes for this class. How are we doing? Have we covered everything on this list? How do you feel about what we should be covering and what you have learned? And the students are starting to tie it all back in together, and they're saying, I'm piecing it together, and I feel that we've covered everything, and I see how it all comes together now. And so that makes me excited to hear that they're actually seeing a rationale behind what I'm doing.
Linda, that makes me so excited too, because I mean, we've all been students before, and we want to make sure that the course content, the roadmap that we're you know, taking the students on, you know, the little touch points along that journey really should be no secret. And so I did make reference in the chat box that, you know, having that kind of midpoint or maybe beginning, middle, and end checkpoint, like how are we doing with SLOs? Because I think sometimes those get lost, like more of an instructional piece of it, like it's just our documentation as instructors, but no, let's bring that information forward so that students can really see the relevance.
Right.
Okay, what else do you have to share with us?
I would, in answer to your question, I would just like to say, you know, what I took away from the PD was, with the feed up, you're trying to understand or help students understand the purpose and how they will be assessed. And so the feedback part of it, I tried to incorporate the additional resources and discussion board. So if I notice that somebody or somebody's didn't totally understand, I will come back to that and add more documentation for them so we can discuss and make sure that everybody does get an understanding of it. I've tried to be more collaborative, so I am in the discussion board fairly often, and trying to get the students, I'm constantly probing them with questions. And then I link the feedback back to the criteria. So we've already had this discussion of what's in the rubric, what are the expectations, and so now when I give them the feedback for the assignment, I can say, you know, we had this discussion in the discussion board, and this is, you know, where you might have missed it, or something like that. And that's why I kind of appreciate this training that we're going through.
Yeah, so it's starting to make sense. It's all starting to come together. That the approaches that you're taking with the feed up, and then you kind of have to own it when you're doing the feedback. And I've peeked into Linda's course, one of the courses that she's teaching, and I use it as a model for feedback with other faculty members in some of my conversations with them. You know, she uses the inline comments, she's asking questions, she is making corrective feedback, and so kind of encompassing all of the features that we've really been talking about. And if you feel a little overwhelmed, I completely understand that, you know, take it step by step, and that's what the action plan is there for you to be able to provide, okay, this is what I want to work on the first 3 weeks, this is what I want to work on the next, and then the next course that you have. So kind of building upon your skills, and then you have the accessibility to the feedback resources within the faculty development website. So Linda, I want to thank you for sharing with us your action plan and your narrative. And you can see that she's got quite a bit of information, you know, things that she posts. You can see here, what is your expectation? How can I clarify expectations for you? She's got some practice dialogue already embedded within her action plan, so that you can kind of see how this is a thinking document, so that the feedback is planned. This whole process is planned. And you try things out, and then you kind of see what you get in return. Thanks, Phyllis, for that feedback, too, because I was hoping that everyone's really kind of latching on to the work. And it is tough work. It's very metacognitive. It's very reflective and thinking about, like, you know, how am I doing this, and is this really working? So I hope that you're getting some feedback, Linda, from your students, not only in the discussion board, but it's impacting their ideas about, you know, what this means as a class. And we talked earlier about this being a cultural shift for students and for us too, right? To be able to say, okay, this isn't just, you know, somebody in outer space, you know, facilitating this class. This is a real person that cares about me, not only about the content, but about the process and my journey as a student. So this whole feedback, these feedback sessions have really kind of fostered that, and I hope we continue to grow with it. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go back to my document here. And is there any additional questions that you may have related for Gina, Linda, and Jack? Please reach out to them privately on the chat. You can share your email addresses, or you can email them on their Baker email. You should have access to all of them. Michael is making an interesting comment about, you know, discussions. Feedback in a formative way is really to promote discussion, and yes, that kind of goes back to this idea about feedback being a social process. Okay. I want you to keep thinking about that question as well. How is your feed-up strategy supported with your feedback? So that's where those two pieces are really starting to come together, and you may, by nature, starting to think about the feed-forward piece of it, but Carolyn, I want to share with you some updates as far as moving forward with feedback features. Some of you have tried, maybe not yet. We have the Annotate Pro application. I shared that with you briefly in our last session, and that is on the Chrome library, the Chrome extensions library, and we'll be talking just for a moment about comment libraries. Jury's still out a little bit about comment libraries. You know, it's an opportunity for people to kind of provide on-demand feedback in a very systematic way. I don't want to say canned, but it's very intentional when you create your own comments and then kind of use them as necessary for the different assignments that you have. I'll talk about that in just a minute. We want to talk about the Crocodoc feature and the inline comments of Blackboard. There's some shifts with that, and then the Canvas features using feedback. So the first thing with the comment libraries on the Annotate Pro, you know, I'm still playing around with it on my end. This has a bunch of comments that are already constructed, whether it be on organization, thesis statements, grammar, citations, and I'm going to suggest that we use that sparingly and pay attention to the construction of the feedback as a model for us. This is not a training on Annotate Pro, I should preface by saying that. This is a tool that we have partnered with to be able to support providing faculty with ideas about how to construct feedback, additional resources embedded within feedback, and then just kind of examples of how feedback should work. Some of our faculty also use the other shortcut keys like Text Expander and Pro Keys. Chime in if you use any of those features when you're providing feedback to your students. If not, might be worth a gander for you. It does save time in terms of short keys with feedback. But if you're like me and I like to give authentic feedback for every student, even if it's repeated over 15 students, I like to do that. That's just me. So it looks like Diane uses short keys. Love to hear some feedback on that in the chat box as far as which program you use. Some cost money. The Annotate Pro is free for us here at Baker, and it comes with a college edition library, and I think it allows you to add little bits of your own library. I'm still kind of working on that one. So that's an option when it comes to feedback, and just really kind of taking a look at the Annotate Pro feature and how to construct feedback. The Crocodoc feature in Blackboard is being sunsetted. We have not officially laid out the information for everybody. That email will probably come out in the next 7 to 10 days, but it is going away. Because we have shifted over to Canvas, we are no longer updating our Blackboard features. That's the thing with Blackboard is you kind of have to subscribe and upgrade to their updates every time, and Canvas is very cloud-based, and so it allows us to just, we're part of it, and it automatically updates. So what I wanted to share with you is between the time of the Crocodoc sunsetting, which will begin in the spring 1 term, and the Canvas features opening in the fall for many of you. For graduate faculty, it'll be sooner. I wanted to offer you some suggestions. So here's an example. You would have to download the document, and it will show up in your downloads folder. And then the opportunity to still provide those inline comments using the comment feature, and then you would just kind of save it back into your downloads or wherever you feel comfortable. Some people already do this, and then re-upload it for the student. I know it's a few extra steps, but believe me, when students get comments in this area, which we've been focusing on a lot, they really appreciate it. They're going to look at that before they look at the feedback to the learner and before they look at the rubric. This is in all honesty. So we're really promoting this, and I'm going to share with you a little bit of information about the Canvas opportunities so that you can really look forward to those opportunities, but not neglect the time between when the Crocodoc is sunsetted, and that's really a code word for saying it's not going to be available anymore, to when the Canvas opens up in fall of 2018. So here I've just taken screenshots for you of some of the information available on our Canvas. This is an open access site, so I'll share with you the link to that. I've got in my notes here where that is, and that's right here. Let me just share that with you real quick. So you can poke around in there, and this provides a bunch of information and tutorials. So this is what they call it speed grader will look like. So you've got, it's called the document view toolbar. Here's what it looks like, and you can see this red box up in here. Provides you lots of tools to be able to use. We can use point annotation, so you can use a pointer still with that chat box, and it just comes right up. Okay, this would be a great opportunity to use the Annotate Pro feature if you're interested in that, or any text expander. You can see you can change the color of the pointer. Maybe if it's, okay, we're going to focus on organization, or if we're going to focus on content, you have a different color pointer. That's an opportunity for you. Another feature within Canvas is the text annotation. You can just hit this button and then just kind of write in any space. It's not necessarily connected to any text. And again, you can use any color that you want to be able to do that, and this would be another opportunity to use the Annotate Pro. You can focus on an area let's say it's a whole paragraph or like a whole problem that you want to provide an alternative way to solve it, you can do that within this feature as well. Again, that would be an opportunity to use the Annotate Pro if you so chose. So, and this is what it looks like for students in the comments. It's just like a little bubble, but they can expand on them. You can see how that actually looks. One might be from the student, one might be from the faculty member. And so it really provides a very interactive opportunity within the Canvas page to be able to do that. And so there really is not a whole lot of switching back and forth between like Word document and the Canvas document, what's embedded within Canvas. So it kind of works like the Blackboard feature did with the Crocodoc. The thing with the Crocodoc is it was kind of outsourced and then Blackboard kind of housed it, but within Canvas, this is all Canvas generated, so it's not a separate entity unto itself. Love to hear your thoughts on this, poking around with the Canvas features and feedback, whether you're excited, whether you're kind of nervous about it. And as you're thinking about that, I'm going to ask that you engage with my Poll Everywhere, and that is available at pollev.com/JuliaKiter566. I'm going to put that in the chat box here. That works. Maybe that's better. How might these shifts in the LMS platform impact your feedback approaches? So we talked about the sunsetting of the inline comments for a little while. We talked about the shifts with the features in the Canvas, what that might look like. You know, some of your feed up approaches, I don't know if that might impact you a little bit. So if you could take the poll, and what will happen is we'll start to see your feedback right within the poll, and it'll just be interactive. So once we hear your responses, that should come right up. So try not to use the chat box for that. Never heard of the Crocodoc, so looking forward to the Canvas feature. So the Crocodoc is when you're grading, the student work comes up, the paper comes up, and that's where you can add those features and comments. That's what that was, yeah. Maybe there's some shifts in terms of, you know, you might need to think about learning about the Canvas platform just a little bit more. I'd love to hear from a few more people on the Poll Everywhere feature. And I should just say the Poll Everywhere feature is a great feedback, like this immediate feedback opportunity for students. And so you can see that I've embedded into my presentations, and that's an opportunity for you to do that as well. Yeah, maybe more efficient. And I love the fact that it will probably make it easier. This is true. When I first started with Canvas, probably about a year and a half ago at another institution, loved that feature. It was so easy to grade student work. I would just shift from one student to the next, and it automatically put it right into the grade center, and it was awesome. And I love the fact that I could provide feedback in multiple areas. So I wanted to share that with you to kind of leave you with a little carrot on the stick to be able to say, I'm looking forward to Canvas, even though it might be a learning curve for some people, but the opportunities to provide feedback and the access to feedback for students will probably be more efficient. Like Linda said, you know, this access to rubrics and whatnot, that'll all be embedded within the within the Canvas feature as well, and probably make it easier for them to access the feedback within the rubrics. And so the opportunity is really going to be an exciting one. To answer Linda's question, training begins whenever you're ready, honestly. I shared with you the community link to Canvas. You can poke around at any time, quite honestly. And then that's kind of how I got those screenshots because I don't have my own classroom set up. So I'm going to share that again. You can poke around at any time and just kind of sniff around what things are available for you. Because online we have quite a strong talent base in the online platform. We'll be providing you with some resources as far as videos, and then kind of see where people are at that point to be able to say, you know, what additional training do most people need? Because there are people that are already using Canvas as their primary LMS, perhaps at another institution. Great question, though. So I don't have a specific date for you, unfortunately. All right, well, thank you for everyone for participating in the Poll Everywhere. Feedback approaches would be enhanced. I currently use the point annotation to comment on the paper. Besides using the rubric, things are wrong on the paper that the rubric does not cover. Good point. All right. So moving forward from that, I do have a record of your attendance. This does conclude our feedback session. And if you're questioning any of the levels of feedback, purposes of feedback strategies, first and foremost, I encourage you to collaborate with your partner. And I also encourage you to reach out to Carol or I as far as, okay, I want to practice this approach. Can you kind of provide me with an update? Can you look to see if what I'm doing? And nothing's going to move perfectly smoothly all the time. You know, we're instructors too, and so we've had opportunities to practice, and sometimes little adjustments really make a big difference. So thank you again for participating with us and engaging. Our next session isn't until January, quite honestly, and that's intentional to give you time to finish up your courses with fidelity and with intentionality, and to give you the time to plan for feed up and feedback for your spring course. And then we'll kind of follow things up with the feed forward, and that is just a one session. And I think it's in about mid-January. I'll check the actual date for that. Please make sure that you filled out the Google form. It is interactive. It's asking for your response, and we always love hearing your feedback. Thank you for everyone. If there are any additional questions, Carol and I will hang on for just a few more minutes, and I will work on the access for the next session there. If you just give me a moment, Diane, I'll get the link for you. I'm going to link you up to the faculty development website. That would probably be the easiest. And then you can find the feed forward session registration right there. It's on the 22nd, it looks like. Thanks again to Jack and Linda and Gina for sharing their work. Feel free to reach out to them as well as your partner. And please make sure that you have provided feedback to your partner. I will sign off for now. Have a great rest of the day.
Andrea Van Estenberg
has left the meeting. Has left the meeting.
Glenn Croxton
has left the meeting.
Jack Garrison
has left the meeting. Has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting.
John DeRosiak
has left the meeting.